Yo, what is up, everybody? Seller Club Podcast, episode 15, Going All In. What's up, everybody?
What's up, Ken?
Ken, Anna, here we go.
And
Going
Glenn.
all in.
Let's go.
I'm gonna love this topic, but before that, let's drop the beats. Alrighty, guys. How was your week? How are you doing? Anna, let's start with you.
My week was crazy. Going all in is a great topic because I found myself taking advantage of some sourcing opportunities that came up out of absolutely nowhere. And of course, I had my whole plan for the week already. And guess what? I decided to go all in, and I pushed a lot of things to the side. So this week is catching up on some things I was gonna have done last week. And meanwhile, no regrets. Glad that I have the flexibility to move stuff around. So it was very busy, and I finally got to collapse and relax a little bit, like at the end of the weekend. So that was great, and I'm ready for this week now. How about you guys?
There we go. What about you, Glenn?
I just feel like that's where having a significant other or partner comes into play when things just happen on the fly. Like you need that support because, like, what do you mean we're not going to do this or not going to do that or this happened or that happened? Because when you don't have a regular supplement of income or a regular full-time job and you're trying to capitalize on deals or things that happen, you got to be ready at all times and
nimble.
Whether that's capital wise, whether that's transportation wise, or how you're going to carry
schedule
stuff,
wise.
And then room. How are you going to make room? Whether that's going to be in your house or storage unit or warehouse, wherever you're keeping stuff. So anything could happen at any time, and you got to be ready. So
it's kind of exciting, though.
It is exciting. Very excining. That's what we live for.
It's definitely like
we thrive in the chaos.
Change up, right? The change up, the not boring things that happen. Because again, we've talked about in our previous episodes that there are things that are monotonous that we have to do, and when opportunity happens or a project happens, that's definitely me, like going all in. I mean, coming back from the Philippines, my first thing was like, what's the project that I'm gonna tackle? And we did tackle our shipping station, and we rebuilt that. Just went all in. I was just jet lagged, waking up at like 5 a.m. I was just like, I'm gonna do something. So finally I feel healthy. I don't have like congestion and everything like that.
It's crazy, congested, man. It was like, Ken.
The last 2 weeks has just been a blur, right? From being sick to like going all in and trying to source, trying to get other different opportunities, because we talked about it in our last episode, right? In you look at the numbers, like how are we starting this year? And apparently, I guess all three of us wanted to start this year strong, and we're all going all about going all in on the year 2024 when like the economy is really not the greatest, but sometimes certain obstacles we see as opportunities. We try to find different angles where we can take advantage and capitalize on. So I'm excited about it. So how should we start, guys? How should we start?
Well, there's a bunch of different ways that we can go all in, right? Immediately thinking about that makes me think about resources, like what Glenn was just saying. It's time, it's transportation, it's capital, right? It's storage space. So we as business owners and resellers, we have all these different ways that we have gone all in our own experience, ways that we can recognize opportunities to go all in. And, there's a thought process for sure. Hopefully, I guess I shouldn't say for sure, but hopefully there's some kind of thought process about how to evaluate those choices and, when's it a good time to go all in, or what's our experience been? So I think we should just kind of pick some way, because I'm sure that all of us have done this in multiple ways, multiple aspects of our business. So let's all just like pick a way that we've gone all in and just kind of like pick it apart and talk about what that was like and why we chose to do it and how it turned out. What was the reasoning, if any? But
I mean, we should start with the the OG reseller, you know, when he quit his job and decided to go all in on e-commerce. I think that's kind of like the stem of all of this right now. Even, you know, me, I wouldn't be with, you know, reselling
Yeah.
if I haven't seen his YouTube video. So, Glenn,
That's
talk
true.
about
And
your
actually,
all in. Yeah.
all three of us did that. We all quit a job / career and went all in at some point. But Glenn was the first. So
Yep.
I love that.
Man.
He's the pioneer.
Well, before we did this, you know, we were kind of talking a little bit, and I just wanted to also throw in there, like, you know, Anna writing a book, and then me going on YouTube. I feel like the scariest part is like you're spending so much time and effort, and you just don't know if it's going to pan out or not.
Will it be a
like,
nothing burger? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you're hoping and you want to see the results, but I think you have way less control on the YouTube side or writing a book or putting yourself out there compared to like an eBay store. I feel like, you know, eBay's
like a
gonna
physical
push your
item,
product.
right? Like a physical item that you're actually
I feel like
selling.
if you're consistent on like sourcing, listing, you're on a schedule, I feel like you're gonna eventually get to those results if you're on top of things. And eBay is gonna push your items as well. You know, it's a huge platform. People are gonna find it. You know, assuming it's something good. You know, something that people are
at
looking
least
for.
decent, right?
Yeah, at least decent. But when you're just flat out, you know, a regular person trying to make it and trying to do some random things, like you could do the same thing with like a band or creative things. If you have your own band, you're a musician, like it is extremely difficult. And even then, like I feel Ken also went all in on a platform as well, and kind of really dedicating a lot of time and effort into that. And so it's the same thing. Like you don't know what that result's going to be. That's what really makes it scary. And I think that's what people hesitate the most on is like, what if I fail? What if this doesn't work? But I think you have to really just, you know, you have to let those what ifs go because, you know, what if it does succeed? What if it does do well?
I think that's a very humbling perspective, thinking about jumping into a store, because I mean, it's true that we all did quit a job, quit a career to do eBay full time, but that wasn't completely cold turkey. It wasn't as though we had never listed a thing in our lives when we decided to do that. We'd all gotten familiar, seen some success already, you know, but like you're saying, Glenn, with some of these other, maybe the more creative side of things, honestly, but the more creative endeavors that we do alongside or related to our stores, they feel like a bigger risk because it's like bigger blood, sweat, tears kind of investment up front for possibly nothing at all, like, or at least that's how it feels. And I think that's really helpful to point out and just kind of to frame those things next to each other, because I think a lot of people starting out selling online feel like it's a really huge risk, but really, like, you can pace yourself and you can see small progress before you dump a bunch of your resources or time or whatever into it. You will see what's working and iterate from there. Whereas, like you're saying, it's like, okay, but spending hours like filming and editing something or writing a book, it's like you can't like throw a paragraph out there and see if it's going to go well and then decide to write the rest of the book. Like you have to write the whole book, you know, or choose a different medium to test out some of the content or whatever. But yeah, it's like, it just makes me feel like, oh yeah, maybe sometimes what we're afraid of or what feels like a really big risk isn't really that big of a risk after all. And really that makes it a little safer to like eventually go all in, or to just be able to know what to look for to give you a green light to go all in. Like you don't have to do that with no input and no market research, right? Or no experience to go on. Like you don't have to go all in right from the jump if you're not ready or it doesn't make sense, but you also can. Like that's the beauty of what we do, is that you totally also can. But anyway, I think it's just interesting to compare those two types of work and the risk that feels like inherent to those.
Yeah. And maybe expectation comes into play too a lot. So what are you gonna say, Ken?
No, I think you know, on the contrary, I would say that if you can distinguish where your destination is, it's a matter of finding a way how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the longer you prolong the going all in, is the scarier it becomes. Because here's my thought process. When I say I can make money selling sneakers, you know, I seen somebody do it. Multiple people can do it. And really what I needed to see was somebody that actually, beyond all the fuzz, the clickbait and the stuff like that, I needed somebody that has done it. Because, you know, like, marketing is everything. You know, people say like, oh, I'm a 6-figure guy, but net, you know, $10, right? Like, I don't want that,
yeah.
right? But
I don't want to net $10.
Because when Glenn said, when Glenn said he paid off his student debt, I was like, that's it, right? Because, like, it'd be something if he said like, okay, I'm living, you know, lavishly, but next thing you know, he's renting, he's leasing, he's like, he doesn't own anything, right? Like, okay, that's one thing. But when he said like he paid off his student debt, which I know a lot of people have been carrying student debt, I was like,
oh yeah,
like, that's legit. That's great money, right? And for me, that was that 1 out of 3 signs for me to go all in, because I didn't know how much I need to spend to make X amount of money, like how many pairs I would need. But I literally quit my job. And said, because sometimes in human history, you have to be pinned next to a wall for you to be able to kick your survival instincts that you're gonna do whatever it takes. Like, because sometimes when you gather too many data, next thing you know, it's like, okay, a lot of times you're just thinking about fail safe, about what if it fails situation. But really, we live in the time that when you fail, you go back to where you're at. You don't die. You know, it's not like, you know, back in the day when you think like, oh, I can fight a lion now. I think I'm man enough to fight a lion. No, like, no, you could die if you're not ready to fight a lion.
If you're wrong.
me opening an LLC, right? Me opening an LLC, buying sneakers, worst case scenario, at that very moment, I said, I'll return everything and I'll get my money back.
Yeah.
Or people said like, what's your fail safe, B? My fail-safe is if I run 50% off on my store, I have all my cash back in a week. So that's my take on, if you wait too late, you're just thinking about how can I be average. But I think if you want to be great, you got to go all in. And the faster you get there, the less fear you will accumulate. Psychologist Anna, tell us about it.
I was just going to say, I like that you're pointing out, though, that you don't have to do it with absolutely no thought process and no fail-safe. It's just like, you don't need as much of a backup.
You don't need 10 fail-safe.
No, and you're right about looking at the data. Like, I love data, love to look at data, love for it to inform what's going on. But when you're looking at it because you're afraid and you're looking for certainty, that's a mistake. Because all the data in the world can only tell you what's already happened. It can't tell you the future. I mean, sure, there are projections, you can run regressions, you know, on your data, but like, that's still not perfect. It's not a crystal ball. And so you also have to trust yourself. You have to trust your experience, and you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith no matter what. So yeah, I think that's really encouraging. But also what you said about, like, the quote comes to mind. Wow, it did come to mind and then it flew out of my mind. Wow, invention. What is it?
Oh yeah,
necessity is the mother of invention. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yes,
Holy cow.
yes. Like,
my brain would not put the words in the right order for a second. But yeah, that's definitely. Some people are like more comfortable being that uncomfortable to put themselves in that position and be pinned against the wall, like you said. But, you know, we can all do that in our own way and on our own scale, too. Like, some of the things that we're going to talk about today, even with going all in, especially, I think we should just start with sourcing, because You know,
Right.
that's how we all start our businesses. We've said it before. We'll say it a million more times. You make your money when you buy, not when you sell. So, you know, there are times that, like, for me, like a little mom and pop, like thrifter, for example, like I'll go to a thrift store and maybe someone's whole collection of something that might be valuable is there. And maybe I have limited ability to research at that time or whatever. Like, how do I decide? Am I going to spend, you know, a couple $100s on this stuff? Like, how do you make those decisions all the way up to, you know, Ken, you selling your entire sneaker collection? Like, that's going all in so that you can have the most capital to source and turn it back over and turn it into more. So I think there's just like a wide range. Like, I want people to consider where they fall kind of in the range of how against the wall or how risky they're willing to be, because wherever like the slight uncomfortableness is probably where you should be, even if somebody else's looks different than yours, you know, because that's what's going to push you into that spot where you have to figure out a new invention, right? You have to reiterate or do something different, or find a new solution that you wouldn't have thought about or you wouldn't have considered without that kind of little bit of pressure that just feels like a little bit more than you would like.
Yeah, I think like pinned against the wall also just kind of reminds me of, you know, having the full-time job that I had and not enjoying what I was doing. And I constantly, you know, remind myself of those days because honestly, any business type of problems or other random problems that come in don't seem as bad. Like, I feel like I've already been through the worst. Like, I know what that worst feels like. I know what that anxiety feels like. Yeah, I know what that, you know, kind of depression looks like and feels like. I don't want to go back to that. And knowing what that feels like, this feels nothing like that. So we're okay.
Right.
We're alive. We're breathing.
So you're just gonna take the return and refund the guy, happily, right?
You just get to like live with that perspective forever. I feel the same way. Like, I say all the time, there's no emergencies on eBay. It's just so nice.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I don't have to deal with any crises. There's never nothing is ever that bad that it's a crisis. And
but then
great.
I also feel like
it.
when things are going 100% though, business wise, and things are great, and for maybe the ones that aren't really used to the problems or pinned against the wall, they feel like reselling is always like this. To where like there isn't like a down, like, oh well, this roller coaster is just going up. Next thing you know, economy's not doing that great. Maybe some items are easier to get to now, so there's way more out there in the market. Maybe you overpaid for a lot of different items, and so you're kind of figuring out, okay, what do I do now? You're not used to it, and you're panicking, and that's why I think we see a lot of resellers come and go when things get tough, and like, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah, so. Ken, you said at one point, I don't know if you said this on the air or not, but you, in a conversation we were having, you said that you felt like with the economy troubles and stuff right now, you feel like people are going to be working twice as hard to make the same amount of money. Yeah. And that's another thing, you know, that Ken also doesn't have a crystal ball, for the record, but I think it's a really interesting and informed like prediction. And so that's another thing that I've thought about, like, well, what does going all in look like when things aren't great? Like, because it's so tempting to quit, or, you know, sometimes you really feel the pressure and you have to supplement your income somehow or whatever. But if this is the kind of the lifestyle and you want to find a way, and you know that it can work because you see other people making a living, you know, if your numbers are way down, what does it look like to go all in to like reiterate the dream, keep the dream alive, keep the business going, you know, pump something different into your store, or you know, do things a different way, or what, you know, because also I think like there's no judgment. I mean, getting a part-time job or something, if you want to keep your store and you're a full-time person, like there's no shame in that either. You got to do what you got to do, and things do ebb and flow. But I think that whole idea of working twice as hard for the same amount of money, like that's a way in which some people might find themselves at a point of decision, right? Where am I going to go all in and stick with this, or am I going to change it up, change up my work life to respond to this difference, you know?
I think it's a lot of the perspective too, kind of like what Glenn said, like, okay, it's either this or I could go back to working, a job that I hate, right? And for me, like looking back at my success when I first started, was selling $300 a day. Like when I did that, I was like unstoppable, because like at that rate, that's 6 figures a year, in sales. And now, like on your downtime and on a bad economy or whatever negativity or just like things against it, I always would remind myself like, yo, like your bad day today was your best day 7 years ago. And when you have that kind of mentality, it's like back then, my best day, I felt like $1 million, just like numbers wise. And now, your worst day was your best day. So I think about it like a contrast. I was like, wait a minute, like, old Ken would be like way happier if he was here. And then now I reverse engineer and find out like, wait, it's not the numbers that's making me unhappy because, right, the numbers have kept going up. And
numbers
it's
are
really
just numbers.
Yeah, and if you track it and if you're making profit and if you're improving constantly, then there shouldn't be a problem. So now it's again going back to the like setting your expectation. Am I setting my expectation too high with the current weather, economy and stuff like that, right? It's kind of like my expectation, like one story that I'm going to share is, I found myself at St. Louis, staying at Anna's place. My expectation was like, oh, it's just rain. When everything's wet, it's shiny. So I walked out the door and I said, oh, the stairs are wet. They're shiny. Next thing you know, 6 steps down, wiped out, and I was just like, bam.
Because it turns out it was ice, not rain.
It was ice. It was, it was rain. And again, like, that's literally, now that I picture it, is like business. You expect something, it's like, oh, you predict. You use your best, like, oh, I've had ice in Ohio, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then next thing you know, Hustleby went all in and just, he went all the way down
the way down the stairs. And then stuck his feet up in the air and just cackled on the ground.
Yeah, and and I looked like a Ninja Turtle because I had green coat and I looked like a turtle on my back. I picked, and again, and that's literally it. Once things don't go your way, stand up, find a way. Next thing you know, we put salt on the ice and solved the problem. Nobody slid down. I went all in. I learned my lesson. Move on. So I think that's it. I think that's a good analogy of when you go all in. Sometimes it doesn't work your way. And again, when it doesn't work your way, you don't die. I mean, I almost died, but I'm fine.
Sometimes it's a close call, but
yeah.
At least we got the whole thing on video. That's the saving grace.
Oh, I know. I saw that video. It leaked.
It leaked.
It leaked online. I saw that full video. So what about perspective-wise? So let's say there's 2 sellers, right? Kind of reminds me of that meme of like one person looking out the window and they're kind of like sad, and then the other person looking out and they're like looking happy. But they're both like the same in the same bus,
right? Yeah.
And it's kind of like, let's say your last. What would be, I guess, a good eBay example? I don't even know if this isn't even a good example, but let's say your last 15 eBay transactions. Mm-hmm. Let's say the person on the left, their first 5 were all returns. Mm-hmm. And then their next 10 were just straight great sales.
Right.
And then the other person on the right, their first 10 sales, amazing, but their last 5 were all returns.
Right.
Yeah.
They
so
have the same.
How are they each feeling at number 15?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I get it.
Either one of them is riding that momentum out of like 10 straight, even though they went through the struggle to begin with, though, and either they kept going to get to the next 10.
Or the guy's just going through the struggle.
Somehow their account didn't get suspended. Exactly. 5 returns in a row.
That's true. Or the other guy.
Doing wrong? I'm just kidding.
The other guy, which would have been like nonstop wins from the very beginning, 10 straight great sales, and now they're going through a slump of 5 straight bad ones. Now they're maybe feeling a little down, but in the end, they both have the same little track record, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, well, it says a lot about what your recent experience is. You know, your most recent experience does have a lot of power to like color your perception of how things always are or how things are always going to be. Like, seriously, that's a real legit cognitive bias. But also, you know, it makes me think of like when people, like, let's say that, you know, we both made a sale and I made $20 on that sale, and you know, you made $20 on that sale. Like, we each made $20 on our own sale. And you're like, oh man, I took such a low offer on this. You know, I only made $20.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like, I made $20. Like, I just turned $1 into 20. That's incredible. Like, I think that there's a lot to say too, like just about your expectations, right? And kind of your perspective and what is the measuring stick you're normally using? Because if you're thinking, oh man, I came way down from this, rather than, wow, the magic of, not only did I make a profit, I like multiple times over got my money back, you know? Like, I think that's moment to moment, our perspective can flip flop on how we're looking at our store and our sales.
I mean, I think, not thinking about that, right? Like your biases, your just perspective and how you see things. And there's a quote that I put on my Facebook, which is, you know, I never have updated it. And this was like 15-year-old B. And it said...
Sounds about right.
It said it there, I never lose. I only learn. And I'm like... And that stuck with me a lot because every time I lose now, I always think about what did I learn. So... And having an all-in kind of move, if you're trying to think about ways where you can go all in, I think it's very necessary to drastically change the projection of your life to go all in. Yeah. If not, it's going to take you a long UE, right? You could be like, okay, let's make a UE on the next exit, which could be 5 miles. Yeah. Or you could pull on the next side road and make the short UE now. It's drastic. It's not comfortable. It may be a bumpy road.
Might be illegal.
But you're going to get... Wait, it doesn't say no U-turn, so...
What does the signage tell you?
You're right.
Yeah, that's fair. Make sure you're not driving illegally.
Yeah,
folks.
I mean, and that's how I see it. Like, it can't be that much worse when, you know, in a situation where you're unhappy with the job that you have, you're unhappy in the industry that you're in, you're unhappy with the products that you're selling. If you make a drastic change, go all in on something different, the worst thing that can happen to you is you learned a lesson and you learned one thing, what not to do. And then you're back at where you're at. And I think like that's really cool and amazing that it's not deadly unless you're skydiving. Then it's then it's not deadly.
So what if it's kind of like that other meme cartoon to where like they constantly keep digging and then one of them gives up before the time, you know, they were so close but yet they
and then you
up.
find a diamond already.
Yeah. So what about something like that? You know, like Ken also, like, we're gonna go back to your YouTube question that you gave me, but like, you started a YouTube channel as well. Yeah. And I told you, I don't think that it failed. I just feel like there wasn't enough time to really dedicate to it, to see it grow. Also, because another opportunity came up, and that also took your time. Right. So it's kind of like you have to pick and choose what opportunity you're going to go with, which is also a good thing of being in 2024, of how many opportunities there are to, you know, make money online. But I just feel like you just don't know also, like, when do you stop doing something, I guess, or where do you keep going? Maybe it just depends on that person and what they're...
That is true. And I think that's when experience comes in, right? Like, and then self-awareness, right? Like, I mean, you're right. Like, I probably only did YouTube for 3 months or something like that, right? And it's kind of like, I guess, prideful for me to say that, oh, it didn't work, I have to go find something different, right? Because I didn't actually give it time. You're right. Because great things happen over time, not overnight. And I think when what I realized, right? Like internally, I counted it as an L. It didn't work out, but also it kicked in that what did I learn, right? Yeah. I learned so many things throughout that 3 months that made me a better videographer, a better photographer, and just learn about Premiere Pro and all these skills that I never had or was not using at all. So it sharpened me so much that when the next opportunity came, which was Whatnot, when I went all in, all my videos were crispy. My live stream was the crispiest in the app, and everybody was coming in, and I felt like it helped with the brand. So
the quality was top notch.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, like,
love it.
I mean, everybody was coming in and said, like, look at this guy's quality. And then this was the time when you cannot stream through OBS yet, and you can only use the phone.
Wow.
And I had like wireless mics and everything like that, and it was like, it was like, but all of that was learned through my YouTube journey, right? So so I guess it goes to say that nothing really is wasted if you really actually went all in and learned a trade. Worst case scenario is you can use your learning and apply it to something different.
Yeah, and sometimes in really unexpected ways, Like sometimes that stuff comes back around and you're like, wow, I actually was really prepared for this, weirdly. Like, I had no idea. I mean, one little example of that from my life was, I had this previous career where I did therapy with people, mostly one-on-one, hour at a time, psychotherapy. It's like the opposite of being on a stage, right? It's a very intimate, close conversation. But I also taught undergrad classes, and I had to develop curriculum and put together presentations and lecture for up to 3 hours at a time. And, I left that whole career behind for the time being, starting years ago. And when this opportunity to speak at the first eBay Open that I participated in came up, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I get to do a presentation, and I had so much free reign over how to develop it. And I did not realize that I had pretty awesome public speaking experience, and I felt really unprepared in a lot of ways, but in hindsight I was like, wow, I was way more prepared for that than I thought I was. And I mean, obviously we're all unprepared for whatever's coming next to some small degree at least, but I was like kind of surprised at how many little components of of all things, writing and delivering a presentation at eBay Open was prepared by my psychology background and my teaching background. And like, I just never would have imagined that it would come into play that way, and it was awesome to see that, to look back and go, wow, not that I thought all of that stuff was wasted, but I was just like, because I wasn't doing that career anymore, I was like, great, that helped me out back then, not relevant now, but actually it is relevant now. And it still helps me now in the things that I do. So even, writing topics for the podcast and stuff, like,
there we go.
Of that, it all comes around.
That's why our podcast is really smooth, because Anna's curriculum building skills have been applied.
I'm always taking notes, you guys. I was just thinking, Ken, when you said, I never lose, I only learn, we actually do I have an idea for an episode that is perfect about that. So we'll be discussing that in depth in the near future.
Well, there we go. Right. I mean, talking about all in, I mean, we all have, went all in on a platform. And one of the things that we've discovered going all in is actually cross-listing in multiple platforms. And
yes, I'm working on that right now. Just
so you know, me and Glenn and Anna have been using List Perfectly. And this episode is brought to you by List Perfectly, the proud sponsor and the official cross-listing tool for Seller Club Podcast. So Anna, talk to us a little bit about your newer experience of cross-listing and what's your perspective about it coming from somebody that has always listed on one platform.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, I I am trying to go all in on the whole world of e-commerce, more so than just my comfort zone of eBay, which I love to say is like my first love of my life. So now I'm branching out, selective listings to other platforms, and it's been really easy to do. I have to say, I've so far listed a pretty substantial amount of listings on one other platform, which shall remain nameless because I'm not having a great experience with that platform. But I am having a great experience with List Perfectly. And what's cool is, even though I have not been having a great experience on the platform that shall remain nameless, I am really excited to try some of the others, because how many are there now that List Perfectly lets you cross list to? It's a lot, right? Like,
yeah, it's a lot.
So let me name
10
it out.
plus.
We got eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Poshmark, Shopify, Kidizen, Mercari. We got Grailed, Depop, and Etsy. So
okay, so that's 9.
There's actually 2
eBay?
more. Oh, you could do
okay.
Instagram shop as well.
Okay.
So
Nice.
there's actually a lot. I mean, also Glenn, I mean, how has List Perfectly helped you with your all-in? I mean, especially with the different inventories that you've gotten throughout the years.
Well, when I went all in on a big buy, it helped me really start to move these products even faster. And it was easier also to keep track of the inventory wise, because I'm like, okay, well, something sells. How many do I have left? I can take it off of, Mercari. So I was really doing a lot of cross listing from eBay to the Mercari side. So when something like that would sell, it was just so easier to, take it off, get it sold, and then move on to the next one. Because we said it before too, if this wasn't available, there was no way I was gonna just be.
There's no way we'd be doing it.
I bought like a 4,500 pair lot. Like, I'm not gonna be listing these on the phone on Mercari one by one. So just clicks of a button onto the next platform. It was just easy.
Mm-hmm. There we go, guys. I mean, talking about going all in.
Yeah.
We have partnered with List Perfectly as of today.
Yes.
It has started. That it's probably the most banger giveaway we have seen as of the late. We are giving away a green iPhone 15. So all you gotta do is go to our Instagram, Solid Club Podcast, follow all the rules that's written down there, and make sure you follow, because we will be checking. You don't want to take an L on a free iPhone 15.
Yeah.
So it's going to be running for 2 weeks. Make sure you check it out, and also follow List Perfectly Inc. on Instagram to be up to date with all their news with the platform.
Yeah, because I was going to say another variation on the theme of going all in as it relates to List Perfectly is that they are always like developing new features and new tools, and they're always just included in your subscription. But they do have their top tier plan. It's called the Pro Plus plan. And they just released a couple of really awesome features like auto delist and an issue finder that helps resolve things throughout, that are having issues with the other platforms. And so that is like, to me, that's very compelling. The auto delist is reason by itself, in my opinion, to go all in and get the Pro Plus plan. So I'm excited. I'm actually going to be doing that like momentarily. And so I'm excited to see how that works. And
there you have it, guys.
That to me
Click
is like
on the link.
Gold.
Click on the link on our bio. You'll get a discount, 30% off on your first month, or use our code SellerClubPod. And there you have it. I mean, man, iPhone 15 we're giving away. I wish I could join.
I know. I don't think I've seen any giveaway like this in quite a while. Right? Yeah, exactly. You get little things here and there, but nothing like this. This is huge.
I can't wait to see who wins. I'm so excited.
Yep, iPhone 15, baby. It's the best iPhone. You know why? Because it's now USB-C.
And it's Seller Club Green.
It is. I actually love the color that it is. I'm like, ooh, I kind of want to get one.
I know.
All right. There you have it. And moving on with our all-in. What has been... Let's just talk about the scariest all-in buys or moves that we have done. Let me start with...
moving physically from the Philippines. Just
moving your entire self
okay.
That
all in America.
like that was all. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. That was scary.
Yeah, I bet.
That was super scary. Only but here's the thing though. In the back of my head, worst case scenario, I'll just go back.
Yeah.
But back against the wall. Back against the wall. You don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, you didn't make it in the land of opportunity where there's a job when you can do whatever you want, when there's, better pay here. Oh, I guess you were just picky, right? I didn't want to be that guy. So I had to make it work.
Yeah.
And now we're here. So, I mean, you're right, man. That had to be. I think I scared JC more than anything. I think she was more scared. Like I've had to believe in it so much that I didn't believe the chance of not working out, because if I showed probably 2-3% of doubt, JC would have been said like, "Oh, you're crazy. I'm not marrying you."
I know, like, you had to be really certain. I mean, not certain, but just confident, right? You don't have to be certain to be confident, and that's important too.
Oh, I like that. Put that in your quote. You don't have to be certain to be confident.
You don't.
I like that.
It's kind of a farce to be certain, isn't it? Like, things change all the time, but that doesn't mean you don't
certain.
get to be confident.
The only thing that's certain is change.
Death and
They're
taxes.
going to say death and taxes. Oh, see? Anna ready.
That is true.
On the wavelength.
Yeah.
Which one have you been thinking about more lately? Death or
we gotta
taxes?
clip that.
Oh,
we gotta
yeah,
clip
true.
that. We gotta clip that. That's gonna be the trailer for this episode. Glenn just talking about like the real things that actually happens in life.
Well, I think, oh man, well, you mentioned a whole different examples of going all in. I know we said physically moving your body from the Philippines to the U.S., but even like getting married, having a kid, going through college and graduate. I'm going to finish college. Okay, well, you put in 4 or 5 years, however long it takes you to graduate, whether it's student loans or not. Everything that you're dedicating your time and effort to, either you're going to go all in or you're not. And if you don't, what does that really look like? And that's away from business perspective, but it's kind of interesting when you look at it on that side of it as well.
What scared you the most in the last probably 5 years, Glenn? What scared?
What scares me the most?
Like business moves. What scared you the most?
Business moves.
When you went all in something like that.
Well, I don't even know if we could even talk about one of the moves, but me and Ken bought a bunch of different items, let's say, from a seller.
Doesn't sound sus at all.
No, that was a big move to where that was a big risky move that did not work out. To where we did not get anything in return. Let's put it that way.
We can't legally talk about it because it's still
ongoing.
I don't even know what they're talking about, just for the record. And now I must find out after we're off.
It's a federal case.
Okay, maybe we should just go back and not include this.
That's fine. I mean, that's just part of it.
It is what it is.
It ended up being like, we lost money pretty much, and we lost a significant amount of money that could have made us quit if we didn't have the right mindset. Would you agree?
Oh, no,
if we didn't have the right mindset, and if we were like if we bought our Lamborghinis, we would have been done. If we bought something extravagant because we know this was gonna work out and we made it seemed certain, we would have been toast.
So you didn't count your chickens before they hatched.
Nope.
Exactly.
I'm glad. I'm glad Glenn was there with me. I mean, I'm not glad that he lost money with me, but I'm glad that he kept me grounded. Grounded.
And Ken got me grounded too, because we would go back and forth on ideas and where do we go to next. I mean, so
because Glenn was gonna go deeper. Deeper. And I was like, no, we gotta hedge our risk. Yeah.
Exactly. But even me and Ken just game planning what our other opportunities were and how to like climb back out of that. It was definitely a learning experience, but we also had other things going for us that it wasn't our only thing that we
Right.
like Ken said, I guess that we felt like this was just gonna be our, I don't know, be all end all and millionaire type of thing or something. It's just like,
I mean, it could have it all panned out.
Yeah,
it could have if it all panned out. Anna, we would have picked you up on a private jet.
Listen, I'm just waiting, just over here waiting.
Yeah. But I'm not saying it's not gonna happen. It didn't happen that time.
It didn't happen that way.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Yeah,
okay, I have questions. I have so many questions. Let me ask you the ones you can actually answer on the air.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm curious. So what was it about that? Because that sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, it was probably infuriating, hugely disappointing, demoralizing. Like
Right.
that's the level that we're at. It's a big deal, right? And so what was it like for you to not internalize that to the point that you were like, I'm a failure, I'm not good at business, I blew it, I should get out of the game? Like, why didn't you think that way? I'm glad you didn't, and you shouldn't have. But what I think a lot of people would have, in your
definitely.
shoes.
I mean, I personally know a lot of people that went out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think probably the gut feeling and the expectation that came along with it, because even though it seemed really good, or things that were going on were good, there was always like, I have this with everything though. I feel like something could just,
you do. It's
I always have that, like,
last.
Something could just not last at any point in time. Like I always have this feeling where, okay, if YouTube stops paying out, what happens? If YouTube goes out, what happens? If YouTube signs an exclusive deal to where only certain people can go on live or make videos.
I mean, kind of like what happened with the Amazon merch that you've had, right? Like the payout just went smaller and smaller, and you were still fine. Yeah,
exactly.
So you're always working to generate the next thing anyway, because it can only help you, and it might save your butt if something like that happens and something you have established dries up for some reason.
Yeah. And there's sometimes also, where I feel like we have a limited time, like we should take full advantage of things. Like there's sometimes where I'm like, man, Whatnot's doing really good. I should be going all in. Like, what am I doing? And there's times where I'm like, man, eBay's doing really good. The I guess the things that I'm selling are doing well. I should be going all in.
Yeah, and you need to get more of what's doing good. Yeah.
Exactly. And then if they're, until it runs dry or until things change, or because things are constantly going to change. That's
and
like Ken said, that's always going to happen.
Yeah.
One week we're telling you diversify, the next week we're telling you go all in. Like, how are we supposed to make sense of this? you know, but it's really a dance between all the different
I think
things.
one of the things that we did that I want to point out is during all the good years, like, because that was a long stretch of good. Like we didn't need anything.
You had the 10 fire sales and then the 5 returns.
Yeah, it was like just roses and butterfly, everything like that. And one of the things that we actually did differently, the first time we've ever did it, me and Glenn went on a book club with ourselves. We read books and discussed it weekly.
Wow.
And that was one of the things that I think prepared us for what was going to go wrong, or just elevated us to the next level. Because I think the going all in, it's a mindset and it's a way of thinking that doesn't attach to results. It's attached to the process of developing and getting to the next level. I think we finished 4-5 books, something like that, Glenn, right? Yeah. Like, so we were like, Glenn would buy a book and would send me, and it's like, okay, we'll discuss this, and then when we're done, I get to pick the next book, and we'll discuss this, and I think that was a stretch of time where we went all in with our mindset. We went all in learning. We went all in on how can we elevate the way we think, even when business was doing good. And I'm so glad we did that, because I think it helped and prepped us for all the other, business failures or even relationship disappointments.
Yeah, exactly. Not even business problems.
Yeah,
anything.
Yeah, even with
life.
Just people, right? Like in life, where things didn't pan out when we thought it was gonna be good, and we always had that kind of. And one of the things that we talked about was Mamba mentality, like the Kobe's mentality of like playing through adversities and stuff like that. So that definitely helped us. So I think that's one of the things that you can't lose really on learning. I mean, Anna, obviously, one of the things that I told Anna when we were out, and he said, Anna, I know you don't like winging it, but winging it is, what did I say? What was the quote?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. It was really great. Let me think about it.
It was winging it
is stored experience applied. That's what you said. Which is, for the record, I don't not like winging it.
Right, 100%. That's where the conversation
have a plan,
started.
And from there, I'm willing to wing it in the right circumstances. It does sound like I don't like winging it, doesn't it?
But it's just a preference at that point. But I'm saying, like, if you have stored knowledge, experience in you, and things happen, that's when you say, like, oh man, you're really good at freestyling. Like, no, it seems freestyle now, but I've been through the things that I have to go through to be able to freestyle now.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's true. And I would add to that, the quote is perfect by itself. Winging it is stored knowledge applied. But I would just like to add to that contextually that can include, it doesn't have to be stored knowledge that exclusively comes from your perspective and your experience. That is a huge driver behind why we're even doing this podcast, behind why we care so much about the Seller Club concept, is that we can actually use the stored knowledge of each other and the experience of each other to have that in our own bank to apply when the time is right. And it's really powerful. Like you guys are saying, the book club idea, was brilliant for you because you got this bigger, more global kind of perspective about business and about decision making and probably like leadership stuff and personal growth. And it just having all of that in mind whenever a huge hurdle comes your way or a huge like left turn has to be taken really does kind of cushion you from just feeling like, well, that's it, everything fell apart. Like, no, it didn't, and good thing you didn't see it that way at the time, because otherwise it would have just been the self-fulfilling prophecy of it did fall apart because you gave up, and like, wow, there was so much more on the other side of that when you didn't give up and you didn't see it that way. So I think that's a really powerful example. But
what about you? What's your scariest buy, Anna?
Man, I don't know. There's been a lot. I was thinking about, there's been a lot of scary things along the way, but I think, so for me, it wasn't straight out like a purchase, but there have been a couple of times that I've done like a really big, almost like a whole estate sale level amount of stuff, like a clean out. And those have been really good experiences overall. But like now, I guess it's really informed me a lot about what I will and will not source again. So here's a good example. The first time that this ever happened, I was still in Georgia, obviously. My whole store was in my garage. And I think I had around 5,000 items at that time. And my garage was like, really organized, but like maxed out. And my dear friend Lacey was like, hey, I've basically made an agreement with these people who were having an estate sale. Like, they have all this awesome vintage stuff, like seriously a mid-century decor dream. But she was just like, there was so much cool stuff and there was so much left over. There were just a handful of people running this themselves. It wasn't like a company. And so she just, on a whim, kind of asked them like, hey, can I have all the leftovers for free when you're done? If, for whatever's left, if I can just pick it up for free, like if I remove it, can I have it? And they were like, yeah, that sounds good. And so then she was like, oh my gosh, well, I guess I'm getting a storage unit and wrangling a few of my friends to go clean out the rest of this house, basically. And she did. And she had this huge storage unit. She had furniture. She had like housewares from every nook and cranny, you know, and obviously they had sold some of it, but there was a lot left over. And so anyway, it was at that point that we got connected up, and she was like, hey, I'm sure there's a way to sell this online. You sell stuff on eBay. Like, what can we work out here?
Oh, she wasn't selling online.
No. And so she was like, not even sure, you know, if she was going to try to sell it or what. So we ended up, and I was like, well, I've got processes in place for this. But, you know, her storage unit was like basically an hour away from where I lived. And so I was like, we're going to have to move everything to me, like, in order for me to process all of this stuff and get it listed. And, you know, so, but it was really cool because even though there's a bunch of things still today in my store, it still sells through slowly. You know, all the best stuff sold faster. That's just how it goes. But, you know, those are still great sales. It's kind of water under the bridge. It's items in the inventory. Most of it I won't ever source again. But the things that it provided for me, which I didn't really necessarily foresee. Like, it was just a big experiment. But I was, you know, learning so much about that inventory. I had to do so much research to figure out what things were and pricing things and how to ship different things. And also just, that's a big long-term consignment, basically, for me. So it sort of, like, got me into consignment and made me understand what I like and don't like about that. It also pushed me into having a storage unit because there was no way that all the stuff that was there was bigger than my garage, which was already full. So I was like, okay, well, guess it's time to get a storage unit. And from there, I didn't really limit myself, you know. Plus, I had all of that stuff when COVID hit, and we couldn't source, like, or I couldn't source how I normally had been for like several months. And I had also just basically consistently on a part-time basis, but like a substantial amount of work, was contracted to my sister-in-law Amanda, whom I love and whom still contracts for me all the time. Like, I was like, oh no, I can't source things. Like, if I hadn't had this giant storage unit full of stuff that needed to be processed, I wouldn't have any stuff to give her. Like, she was doing photos and logging inventory. And so, like, thank God I had, you know, 6 to 8 months of inventory to process already sitting there because I said yes and did this experiment. And so there are some things about that, you know, I wish that some of the stuff was like more valuable or it sold through faster or whatever. But on the whole, like, there were so many great things that I did learn and that kind of were exactly what they needed to be at the time. So I don't regret it at all. Like, but it was scary to take on, you know, basically another entire garage worth of stuff. Never having done that kind of situation before. Not knowing what was even in there. I mean, these were just boxes full of stuff that wasn't organized at all. Like, it seemed a little crazy at the time, but I was like, I've never had this opportunity, and so I'm just going to go for it. And, you know, everything got listed eventually. And, you know, I donated stuff. I cleaned stuff out. Like, Lacey's awesome. She's such a champion. She helped me move everything up to where I lived. And so that was like it did feel like a big risk, and it wasn't like a perfect situation, but it was definitely the right thing to do. And I'm glad that I did.
There we go. I like that story. And Ken, last
learning
one,
about All In. I mean, I think that was the scariest thing. I think that was the scariest thing. I mean, I don't think that anything could trump that, because after moving halfway around the world, we just do suitcases. I mean, like,
I think, what about scariest buy though?
Scariest buy? I would say the scariest buy was when kind of like I was doing whatnot, and I would just spend all the money I have, because during that time when me and Glenn started whatnot, everything was just selling. Everything was selling for, over market. And every time I bought, like, there were times that I was like dropping 20 to 30 grand on like a day or two. Yeah. And fingers crossed it was all gonna sell, right? Like, and And for a long streak, they did, and it kind of like helped me build capital and stuff like that. Like I would say, like when got to a point that I was just paying at market, and it wasn't even a deal. It was just a matter of getting products. Every time before I go live, I would just have butterflies in my stomach. And overall, it panned out. I made money, but there were shows that I would, because like 2-3 hours the show would be done, and I'm doing my math. Me and Glenn be calling each other. It's like, whoo, like I made money there. And there were times like, crap, I lost $2,000. And you did all the work and lost $2,000. I'm like, and I think that was the scary part, because like I until this day I still don't really like understand the market of live selling on sneakers specifically.
Sneakers is a different
sneakers,
but not only that, you'd given away some like good stuff too, and like buyer giveaways,
like $500-$600 items.
So it's not like
crossed that I would just bring in people on the show, right? And plus that and traveling, I really did. That was definitely the scary part, for 6 to 8 months, just going all in on that. I mean, I think, looking back at it, I was like, and every time I do all in moves, I always look back like, I don't know how I did that. It's crazy. Like every time, like, I don't know how I move halfway around the world. I don't know how I, went from an apartment, paying like $700 a month on an apartment, to like doubling my mortgage, and being okay with that, right? And it's like when I moved I think that was one of the scary part too. When I moved all my inventory in my apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment that felt really full, move it here to the basement. And my basement, it was a fourth of my basement, all my inventory. That's when I was like, oh crap, how am I gonna fill this up? That was scary. That was scary. But again, I mean, you just have to grow and learn, and we did all that. So
it just goes to show, it's like, because you're more capable than you think you are. Is the answer. Like, exactly. How did I do that? I mean, I feel like that about moving, and I only moved 600 miles, not all the way across the world. But I think that, like, man, if something crazy happened and I needed to move again, like, next month, like, I don't think it'd be humanly possible, but I bet it would be. It would be crazy, but it would probably be doable. Like,
it's possible because you've done it, right? You've done something way more harder with, worse circumstances and worse financial situation, and you made it work. So I think, I think that's one of the things that, I like about kind of just like having the conversation with each other, just either reminiscing the good times and the times where we overcame obstacles and difficulties. And me and Glenn have always kind of like reinforced this, that whenever a problem arises, we look for solutions. We're solution finding people. And I think that's one of the things that, we resonated with Anna too, when Anna was just, I've never heard you say like, oh, it can't be done. It's like you've said like, okay, like how can we make it happen? Like,
you've heard me say,
like
I don't want to do that, but not that I can't.
No, yeah. No, I've heard Anna say, I don't want to do that, but I was like, no, I know you can.
And I'm like,
it's possible. It's like, Anna, get social media. You know what I'm saying? Get on Instagram.
Right,
it's possible. Right. And then look at her like doing reels and stuff like that.
Listen,
doing more reels than Glenn now.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the thing. If you really can't do something, if it's really not possible to do, right? Or if you think somebody is going to tell you you can't do that, make them tell you. Don't hamstring yourself and jump the gun and do it for them.
Make them say
you know what
no,
I mean?
Right? Make them say no.
Don't do the work for them. Make them say no. Yeah.
I like that.
Also, don't let people tell you what to do. But whatever.
And
100%.
There you have it, guys. We will see you on the next episode. My name is Ken.
I'm Glenn.
And I'm Anna.
See you in the next one. So we out.
Bye.